Hi there. My name's Matt. I'm the director of RevOps here at Consensus. And if you're like me in the RevOps space, or even if you're not in the RevOps space, if you're in the sales space, if you're just anywhere close to your business, you're always going to be hearing the question, is this deal going to close? Is this opportunity going to close when? Are we going to crush our quarter? Are we going to miss our quarter? If so, by how much? And these are the kind of questions that frequently come up and most companies have not found an answer for. I saw a number when I was at a recent conference that said 95% of companies can't predict to within 5% what their final number is for the fiscal quarter just 2 weeks before it closes. So most companies are flying blind as to how they're going to perform. But here at Consensus, we found a novel way to solve for this. And the craziest part is it's not even that complicated. So we're going to go through it together. This whole thing kicked off about 2 years ago when our VP of sales, his name is Dan Hickson, great guy, he had this phrase, he told me this in passing. He said that when we have prospects that we meet with weekly, they tend to win more often. And I said, well, I have access to the data. Let's see if this is actually true. And when we ran the numbers, we found that, yeah, the more frequently you meet with people, the more likely you're going to get a deal to win. When you meet with them monthly or less, it was like 10, 15%. But when we met with them weekly, it was over 60%. So we saw a 5x lift in those win rates. But if you've read our report, you know that the vast majority of decision-making when buying a piece of software, especially in B2B sales, doesn't happen in the meeting. In fact, most of these actions, over 80% of them, happen outside of meetings. So Consensus, we have automated demos, product experience platform. We said, I wonder how that impacts the likelihood of a deal to win. And so I ran those numbers because we have those numbers as well. And once again, a dramatic lift. So if you had 0 demo views, less than 10% chance of winning. And as you had more and more demo watched, whether it was 9 people once or 1 person 9 times, we saw our win rates lift to over 60% when we had more demo views. And so when you connect these two things, you say, well, that's interesting, but how do you action it? How do you make it into something that can predict your pipeline? And we said, well, first of all, you got to identify what are these things? Well, they're buyer actions, right? These are better indicators of buyer interest, not what you're doing, not what emails you're sending. What signals are you getting back from the buyer? And so when we did that, I said, all right, let's figure out how we can take this, action it, put it into a score that we can actually implement and we can have people action. So the score we put together, what's going to be deal momentum in a second, is we had to make it, number 1, simple to understand. Number 2, let's make it simple to automate. And number 3, let's make it simple to act on. There's a recurring theme. Simple. Simple is the word. And so what we did is this. We took a basic score, 0 to 100. We limited the metrics to just meetings and demos, literally nothing else. Well, little else at the first, but nothing else in the end. We weighted it. So we wanted to say meetings weigh more than demos. We made it time limited. So we only looked at that moment of what you've got in the next 7 days, what you did in the last 7 days. And we said, all right, let's make sure all of this is automated. We don't want someone to have to put this data in. And finally, we take these snapshots weekly. So every 7 days, we take our score and we snapshot weekly to see where it's progressing. And so when we did this, we had what was eventually going to be called deal momentum. And so this is just what it looks like on an average deal. Each week, you look at it and you say, well, you just had a demo view, you get 30 points. And then next week, let's say you've got a meeting coming up this week and you had a demo view. You add that together, 70 points. And then let's say you don't get a demo view and you didn't have a meeting this week, but you had one last week. You get 30 points. Then nothing happens on week 4. That's what deal momentum is. And then you average those together, you get your average deal momentum. And what was crazy is that when we did this across all of our deals for the last 2 years and plugged it into a model that said, let's predict if this is actually going to work. You know what? It was actually predictive. As in to say, if you graphed what your deal momentum was going to be, you could graph what your win rate was. 10 average deal momentum, win rate of 13%. When you got it up to 40, your win rate was 70%. And this had a high level of statistical significance. And when we finally implemented, you know what we saw? Deal momentum skyrocketed when we actually were able to coach to it. So doubling of close rates, record consecutive quarterly bookings, and we were able to nail multiple quarters in a row within 5%, not 2 weeks out, 9 weeks out. Deal momentum was an exceptional way to take these metrics that actually predict close win rates and put it into something that was actionable. So that's what we did here at Consensus, and we would love to share it with all of you and make sure that you can sell well to your business.